spacecraft has noticed that the Saturn's North Pole appears different when compared over the last several years. In a news release, the agency notes 2 natural color images from NASA's Cassini spacecraft show the changing appearance of Saturn's North Pole region between 2012 and 2016. Furthermore, NASA says scientists are investigating potential causes for the change in color of the region inside the North Polar hexagon on Saturn. The color change is thought to be an effect of Saturn's seasons. In particular, the change from a bluish color to a more golden hue may be due to the increased production of photochemical hazes in the atmosphere as the North Pole approaches summer solstice in May 2017. According to NASA, researchers think the hexagon, which is a 6-sided jet stream, might act as a barrier that prevents haze particles produced outside it from entering.
Okay, so this is kind of interesting. I had completely missed this one. I didn't even know anything about it until somebody mentioned it in a comment the other day. But apparently in October, about a month ago of 2016, scientists announced that they discovered that the hexagon on Saturn's pole had changed from blue to gold. So this is approximately 10 years after they confirmed that it was still there in 2006 after first being discovered in 79 by Voyager 1. But overall, the whole thing is actually just kind of funny. And there have been a few people who've commented on this in terms of its symbolic significance, Illuminati symbolism, and so on. One of the ones I saw was Round Saturn's Eye, who I'm not necessarily endorsing his channel, but he does talk a lot about Illuminati symbolism, and so he does point out a lot of good things, even if his own teaching isn't completely solid itself. But it's funny, because once again, here we have another example of something that, from the standpoint of the people still trying to interpret it through the heliocentric model and the heliocentric lens, they look at this as just such a weird thing. Like, how could the planet change? How could something on this planet change color? I mean, if the planets are real and they're part of God's creation, then why are they changing color in accordance with some sort of Luciferian symbolism about the entering into some sort of golden age or whatever? It gets it's a confusing idea. Like, why is this satanic symbolism connected with God's creation, and how does that all work? What's going on there? But of course, from the flat earth perspective, and it's no more difficult than just changing your color settings in Photoshop. The hexagon on Saturn is something that nobody with an amateur telescope can even look at themselves because of the angle. So this piece is completely reliant upon NASA. I don't even think the other space agencies have anything that's claimed to have gone that close to Saturn. So here we go. It's just another example of the same old shenanigans, which now just seem kind of just silly. But, you have to kind of cross that threshold to where you just see it for what it is. And for anyone who's not familiar with the symbolism of Saturn and the hexagon and understanding what that connection is all about, I'll just include a few clips from a really great documentary that somebody made called The Cult of Saturn, which gets into the hexagram and otherwise known as the Star of David, and why it is really the supreme occult symbol. It is the most considered to be the most powerful occult symbol. The fact that it was put on the Israeli flag and is associated with Israel is, of course, all very significant and very dark, and it is connected to Saturn. And again, if Saturn is not a planet, but it is possibly really just itself a symbol of some type of dimensional realm, either an origin or a place where fallen angelic beings are imprisoned until the time when they are released. Either way, it does make sense as to why we see the occultists constantly pointing back to Saturn and turning their attention to Saturn, because it does figure so prominently in their entire belief system and in their entire Luciferian eschatology. It's very, very central. So obviously this color change is intended to mean something, and hey, the idea that it represents their belief in the coming golden age, Luciferian golden age, I mean, that sounds as good as anything. I wouldn't, dispute that, at least as a hypothesis. So just wanted to do a short piece on this quote-unquote story, because it's just another clear fabrication, just demonstrating how this whole fabricated space narrative is just, it's all about occult symbolism at the end of the day. That's its whole purpose, is the communication of ideas and concepts and memes and subconscious messaging and all sorts of nonsense. So stop believing in it. Later.
In early 2007, modern imaging technology revealed something else on Saturn that astounded scientists.
We see it very, very intensely now.
It's something big, something strange, and something never seen in the universe before. Saturn, the solar system's most bizarre yet beautiful planet, has just gotten even more mysterious. In 1979, the Voyager spacecraft showed a perfect geometric form over the North Pole. In October 2006, the Cassini craft found that it is still there.
It's just bizarre, and it sits there kind of still. It doesn't move with the planet. The pole, there's a hexagonal feature, a six-sided polygon that encircles the pole at about 78 degrees north latitude. And it's sitting there as a set feature.
The hexagon is similar to Earth's polar vortex, which has winds blowing in a circular fashion around the pole. Saturn's vortex can fit 4 Earths inside of it and extends 60 miles deep into Saturn's clouds.
And what's more bizarre, Voyager saw little tiny clouds going around at about 100 meters per second, which is about 200 miles an hour, going around this racetrack. People thought, well, maybe it's just a temporary thing. How could this stay there? It's been there now for at least 20 years, and we're going, what is this?
Simple cube used for storing office supplies. Or is it? In his book, A Land Unknown, Hell's Dominion, Brian Melvin describes miles and miles of cubes, each one containing a person suffering the same punishment they inflicted on others before they died.
In 1980, I was a rough and ready kind of a guy. Partied a lot, and I was moved to Tucson, Arizona, and I was working at a construction site. And one of the guys brought some water from Mexico that was contaminated. And I ended up drinking it by accident. Got real sick, contracted cholera, and within about 72 hours I was flat on my back and basically dehydrated. That's when I passed away. I noticed that when I passed on, that of course I wear glasses and I'm very nearsighted. I noticed that, first thing I noticed is that I wasn't wearing my glasses and I could see clearly across the room. And when I turned my head, I noticed that my body wasn't moving. And I was lifted right out of my body and hovered over my body, looking down at myself and looking around. And next thing I knew, I went through the ceiling of the room I was in, and I was transported into a very, very, very black, dark void. I could hear like somebody speaking to me, like telepathy. And it was explaining to me many, many things that I no longer remember, but most of the idea was explaining to you the whys of life, why there was evil in the world, why this, why, people have questions all the time. These were being answered to you as you were being transported to this light. And time you got to where the light was, you knew what happened, you know what's going on. You know what happened, you know you died, you know you're going to be judged, and everything as you're traveling, it's made so clear to you that what's happening is perfectly just and right. Oh yeah, I was going through the darkness and I was approaching the light there, and I noticed that on this rock, it was a big huge boulder right out in the middle of this darkness, and there was a person sitting on a throne. And the individual that was sitting on it was emanating light, very, very powerful, bright light. And there was a love and compassion too, but also a firmness and fairness emanating from this person. And I'm going, who is this? And the basic question that was coming to me through this thought was, look what you have done with God's gift. It was actually Jesus was speaking this to me. He said, if I let you into heaven with what you know now, that I'm just, right, perfect, you would misuse that and keep sin alive in heaven. You can't come in. He told me it was granted to me to see a land unknown that's best forgotten, but will not be left unseen. That was it. And then he took out all these keys out of his robe, just pulled them out. And as he pulled them out, you could see the scar where the nails were kind of like in the wrist area, and it kind of pulled the bones apart. It's kind of traumatic looking. And he had these keys, and the keys were odd shapes and design. And he walked over to a place, and he stuck this key into this, looked like a gate. And a door opened. Then the veil came over, and it was dark again. I couldn't see it all. I could see it was the Lord. And I was being moved toward this door, and I went through that door into a void. I mean, a tornado vortex. It was just going round and round. It was a tunnel, spinning horrendously around, just roaring and roaring and spinning and spinning and spinning. And it smelled horrible. I could hear these screeches and noises and sirens. The most thing I remember the most was slurping noises and screams, and you could feel heat, really hot heat. The next thing you know, I was falling through the sky. It looked like the sky, and I hit the ground. It kind of hurt, and I stood up, and I looked, and I go, where am I?